Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Smart Republic 2018, an international conference on collaborative development of smart cities and smart villages. The conference is being jointly organized by the World Bank, UN Habitat, UN Global Compact Network, UN University in Portugal. These are the UN agencies which have come together for this conference. In addition, we have our partners from Indian government, which is All India Institute of Local Self-Government and regional centers for urban and environmental studies, which are based in Lucknow, Mumbai, and Hyderabad. We also have trade mission representatives from 8 countries, and Embassy of Norway has agreed to be the strategic partner with us. So I think with that introduction, I would like to invite the panelists for the inaugural session onto the dais, Mrs. Jane Treadwell. She's the Global Practice Manager at the World Bank, Mr. Uddesh Kohli, who's the Senior Advisor with the United Nations Global Compact Network, Professor M.P. Gupta, who's the Head of the Department at Department of Management Studies, IIT Delhi, Dr. Shashank Ojha, who is the task team leader of this project under which the conference is being done, and Mr. P.V. Jaganmohan, who's the Divisional Commissioner with Bareilly city. Thank you so much, everybody. I would also like to mention one of our very important partners. My apologies for not being able to mention them. Indian Institute of Public Administration, Delhi, who has been, Professor Charu is here from the institute. They had been working with us for past 1 month, day in and day out, in putting together this conference. So. Warm thanks to you, ma'am. And with that, I would like to invite Dr. Shashank Ojha to give you a brief about this entire project and also deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Vikas. Good morning to everyone, and many thanks for joining us today in this conference. We are very pleased to see the kind of participation and the support we have got. This conference on collaborative development of smart cities and villages has received actually unprecedented response, and we had to actually start the process with registration, but there was so much of demand that we had to stop the registration process. So thank you again for this amazing support with your participation. As Vikas was mentioning, we have representatives from 25 smart cities, approved smart cities. As you all know, 99 smart cities have already been approved by Government of India. We have very strong partnerships and collaboration with 4 UN agencies, which Vikas mentioned. We also have very strong collaboration with the Government of India and state government agencies. And that is where the demand side comes in, And they are the people on the ground who are actually mandated and are responsible to implement this very ambitious project. We have representatives from 8 countries. We have the ICT and the digital industry representatives. We have academia and capacity building institutions. So a very, very comprehensive set of participants covering almost all sections of stakeholders who are implementing this critical piece and a very ambitious 100 Smart Cities program of Government of India. Thank you again for all your support. In this, we are also very fortunate to have in this inaugural session some very distinguished guests, and who you can see. We have Miss Jane Treadwell. She's traveled all the way from Washington, D.C. just to attend this and be here with us to discuss and take this initiative forward. She is the Global Practice Manager of our GP, which is our Global Practice on Digital Development. We have Mr. Uddesh Kohli, who's Senior Advisor of UN Global Compact Network, organization which has worked very closely, and the only agency in the UN which actually works directly with the ICT industry. So very, very important piece. And if we are talking about collaboration, I think it's very important that the providers of knowledge and the expertise which actually exists in the private sector, they become part of the process. We have Professor M.P. Gupta. I think people in the ICT, in the e-governance industry all know him. He's the guru on the technology. So we are very happy to have you, sir. Welcome. And finally, we're very happy to welcome Mr. Jaganmohan, who's the Commissioner Bareilly, and a very, very active commissioner and in charge, a leader on the smart city in the state of Uttar Pradesh. This conference is being organized, this initiative is a knowledge initiative, and this project is called the ICT Integration for Green Growth. And this is being organized through support from KGGTF, which is the Korean Green Growth Trust Fund. And the funding has come as a grant, and the whole objective of KGGTF funding was to share the best practices on smart cities, and the most importantly, that how do we introduce the concept of green growth? We all know that the UN adopted, we moved from MDGs, which were Millennium Development Goals, to SDGs. And in the UN, the SDGs have been adopted. And SDGs have these 3 pillars, which are economic development, inclusiveness, and environment. And unless we meet these 3 SDG pillars and objectives, I don't think a smart city can call itself smart. So that becomes a very critical piece in terms of how we implement our smart city initiatives in our. So before we move forward, I just want to thank the South Korean government for this funding, for this initiative, with not only funding, with technical experts. We were able to take pilot city representatives from 3 states to South Korea, where we saw the global best practices. So just why South Korea and why this partnership between South Korea and World Bank? I'll just like to show a small video, and that will give you a background about KGTTF, which has been our sponsors and have funded this. Can we show the video, please? This is a very small video. It'll just take 3 to 4 minutes.
From the devastation of war, the Korean people built an economic powerhouse, but they did it their way. Even while focusing on building a better life, they did not forget that a better life means more than just income. Even then, Koreans and their leaders knew that a robust nation must also be resilient. After the war ravaged its land, the government planned an ambitious reforestation plan. Millions of trees were planted, and in the space of a generation, the once brown hills turned green. While it was building massive factories to fuel the country's economic development, Korea strictly enforced green belts around its cities. These now become the basis for the spacious state parks that millions of Koreans enjoy. And when it needed to power factories, Korea aggressively chose to invest in nuclear power. Korea's economic development that was firmly supported by the World Bank is a success story that inspires many countries that also need to find their own path to economic success and sustainability. Now the World Bank and the Republic of Korea have joined hands once again to form the Korea Green Growth Partnership and the ensuing Korea Green Growth Trust Fund. We are here to help countries design, plan, and implement green growth strategies and investments. Our unique model provides countries with the financial support and technical access to the experiences of policymakers and green growth technical practitioners, experts that are setting the example in countries like Korea of how countries can develop healthy growing economies while achieving environmental protection and climate change resilience. Our goal is to keep implementing success stories that spin off into more success stories, green growth that nurtures more green growth in every part of the globe. In the past 3 years, the KGGTP has used $41 million to fund 80 projects in urban, transport, ICT, energy, water, and other environmental sectors. We helped West African countries protect their fishing waters, Honduras to develop efficient power supplies, Kosovo to design a rural broadband program, Indonesia to address the issue of rapid urbanization, and Poland to improve public transport. Our programs have led to a total of $4.8 billion worth of World Bank Group lending projects that have touched the lives of millions of people around the globe. But we are just getting started. In 2016, the fund is now replenished and offers a total of $88 million through 2021. Korea's green growth is actual knowledge that comes from desire. The desire to grow, the desire to live better, and the desire to create a better world for all. An action plan for nations that desire to build a more prosperous today without sacrificing their tomorrow. Desire with us, hope with us. Let us do it together. Green growth, the Korea Green Growth Partnership.
Thank you. Actually, that's the key message. I think two things come out very clearly. Let's do it together. And that's the theme of our conference here, a collaborative approach. It has many, many dimensions. We know that 100 cities have been approved. If you look at that, data is now available on all the 100 proposals. And if you analyze that data, you'll see that we are actually, the 100 cities are coming out with high priority areas which they want to address in the first few years. And then you find that more than 60 to 70% of the smart cities are actually focusing on 3 or 4 key areas. And these are intelligent transport systems, environment and pollution systems, safe and smart water systems, waste management, and environment, which I had already mentioned, and energy and smart energy. So These come out as the top high priorities, and then there are others. So the first collaboration which we can think of is that should we be doing smart cities and smart projects independently 100 times, or can we all collaborate and see that some of the pilots are done using various technologies, and the successful ones are then shared among all our 100 cities, and then we quickly scale up. So that's the first level of collaboration. The second level of collaboration is that can we all cities in a state collaborate, because that's the way constitutionally we are organized. So each city in a state can, urban is primarily a state subject, so can we collaborate at the state level? And the third is that the actual expertise, knowledge, and solutions are with the private sector. Can we actually collaborate through? I'll not use PPPs, but any other ways that we can collaborate. PPP is just one of the ways, but that's the third level of collaboration. And then the supply side collaboration, and this is actually the conference is an example that can we bring all the knowledge collabs, the 4 UN agencies, all the bilateral countries where the knowledge exists, the ICT industry, can we all come together and bring the best practices and best solutions to the smart cities from the knowledge provider or expertise provider side. And finally, the collaboration on, if you see the way the smart city has been configured, the project is into 2 components. There is an area development component, and there is a pan-city ICT component in the proposals. And funding has been made available, proposals have been prepared, and funding has been made available. But actually, to be effective, both these areas are not 2 different components, and they have to collaborate with each other. Whatever investments or infrastructure we are developing in the area development in the first component also has to become smart. So, and these 2 cannot actually stand independently. So can we actually collaborate and make sure that the pan city and the are in sync, and are we able to strategize that? The second point I wanted to emphasize is that it's all about implementation. Now, in this conference, we'll not talk about smart city concept, what is it all about, what are the various definitions. And now the time is to implement. So the focus is on implementation. What are the challenges? How do we go about it? So let's talk about that. And what we have to implement, the definition is the approved proposal. The proposals have been approved, funding has been made available. The challenge now is to get down, focus, and put all our efforts in implementing what we have committed. And finally, it's very, what we've been discussing, we've been working with some of the smart city pilots, and we find it's a very ambitious and a very complex initiative. Our smart cities are not really prepared. We don't have the expertise and capability, and this cannot be done individually by cities or by single companies or agencies or organizations. We all have to work together, and therefore, again, the emphasis on collaboration. So this is, over the next 2 days, we want to talk about how to collaborate and how to move forward. Thank you so much. We look forward to your support. And in the last session, we will discuss how we can all work together. Thank you, and welcome again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ojha, for setting the context. We have with us Ms. Jane Treadwell, who had been, even though working out of multiple countries, but while implementing this project over last 1.5 years, we never really realized that she was not in India. We've been talking on a daily basis and getting guidance from her, and she'd been kind enough to come when we launched the knowledge portal last year, and now when we're taking it forward. So can I invite Ms. Jane Treadwell to share her thoughts with us?
Thank you, Vikas, and hi, everyone. I come to India to learn. As Shashank said, this is an ambitious project, and it is also being seen by many other parts of the world and our client countries as an area to watch and learn and draw on the expertise and experiences, both great ones, and sometimes you learn more by the errors or the missteps than you do from the successes. I think in terms of just reflecting on, the fact that our world now has 7 billion people in it, and they are more connected than ever before. And as the World Bank President said last year, there is now a convergence of aspirations, that a woman my age in Chennai or Uttar Pradesh can have the same aspirations as a woman in Paris, and how her twin, if you like, might live, play and work in another part of the country or the globe because of what the internet and connectivity has brought. There's also the convergence of technologies where global companies are now almost giving voice services away in order that you can purchase data. But the disruptive business models are really changing and challenging the role of institutions, expectations of governments, the nature of privacy, transparency and efficiency. And then, of course, there's the convergence of leadership, and where leaders equally don't have to learn everything from scratch, but can share their experiences. And they are enabling the benefits of the shared economy, both within and across the public sector, within and across the private sector and the non-government sectors. I think the biggest challenge that many bureaucrats in the room you may have had to deal with is that issue of collaboration within organisations, and now we're speaking of collaboration across organisations, across jurisdictions, and in fact across the world. So one of the t-shirts I once received as I was leaving a government agency in Australia had, "Watch out for this woman, she's a silo buster." And in those days, trying to look at how you could create the platforms for sharing within government was pretty tough. It's in fact where I learnt an interesting definition of collaboration, which I'm sure in this room we will challenge. But in the 1980s, President Clinton's medical advisor defined collaboration as an unnatural act between non-consenting adults. And for those of you who are equally silo busters, sometimes you meet some resistance. And that area of collaboration is actually the sweet spot where together you can achieve more together than you can separately. And as Shashank said earlier, why go to the cost of duplicating many of the platforms and the experiences when you can ride on the back of those that came before you and leapfrog? Last June, we held the conference on shared cities with the Korean government here, talking about the concepts. And since that time, there's been quite a degree of effort and action. As was mentioned, there are 39 more cities that have been announced in India as the smart city developments. The knowledge portal that was launched half a year ago now is working with 7 cities. The case studies that related to a number of Korean cities has now expanded to include Finland, Netherlands, New York and Australia, and there are many more to come as a result of the partnership with the UN University, which we'll be hearing from more, the UN Global Compact Cities program in India, and a number of government agencies in India. We're also working in Vietnam, and they too are looking to India for guidance and clarity about what can be done on smart cities, not just removing the traffic congestion, or not just dealing with issues of environment and water and waste management, but also about how to exploit the value that technology and new forms of data can bring. The role of the World Bank in supporting Smart Cities program has many elements. Certainly the bank since the 1940s has been a lender, but the bank is now looking to be more as much a lender as a broker in leveraging other resources and investments from other investors and banks. To be a convener, as is expressed today, in bringing together the excitement and the people that have a common goal, and to facilitate the sharing of knowledge and the broker of collaboration in the best sense, not the unnatural act sense. There's nothing more exciting than collaborating to achieve extremely challenging goals. And the smart cities ecosystem, even if we're just speaking of India, is going to be expanding, and the fastest route to success is by sharing knowledge, know-how, experiences, and possibly sharing the assets and the leadership. And this is where I'll finish in terms of just the revolutionary impact of the digital platforms that are now being experienced in the private companies such as Uber and Airbnb, but also in the governments like Estonia, Moldova, various Indian state governments and other countries around the world, where we have the two sides of sellers and buyers, or governments and businesses and citizens, where data is now delivering real-time services and responses, reforming the way in which governments and businesses work, disrupting the traditional value chains and positively impacting the productivity and experiences of businesses and citizens, so that in the end, prosperity is shared and poverty is reduced. We look forward to not just today in supporting the collaboration and making that easier, highlighting the relative capabilities that can be combined to advance the Smart Cities program for India, which then the rest of the world can both draw on and get on board with. So thank you. Look forward to the discussion for the next 2 days.
Thank you so much, Jane, on your guidance on breaking silos and working together in a collaborative environment. And I think one of the examples we have, when we were talking to the cities for past 1 year, and we were asking that in each city there are about 20 agencies who work separately and they need to collaborate. We realized that, while we are preaching to the cities that they should work collaboratively, we as part of UN group were not collaborating with each other. So that's when we reached out to other UN agencies, and I think in the fastest possible time since the last conference, we could partner with UN Global Compact, India Network, UN University, UN Habitat, and also some of the country missions. And I think our next speaker is the evidence of that. We have been, when we were working to organize this conference, at one point, I think about 10 days back, we forgot whether UNGCNI was organizing it or the bank was organizing it. We were so involved. And with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Uddesh Kohli, who is the Senior Advisor with United Nations Global Compact Network, who are our partners in the conference. And
Thank you. My co-panelists, distinguished participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps since we are collaborating in this effort, and it will be mentioned about UN Global Compact, perhaps it may be pertinent to just explain to the audience about the Global Compact. Many of you may be aware, but I think there are several participants here who may not know so much about Global Compact. UN Global Compact program was initiated by United Nations Secretary General at that time, Kofi Annan, in the year 2000. Basically, the idea was the UN wanted to reach the business organizations and involve them in the economic and social development in various countries, while following ethical business practices and being transparent. So the Global Compact came up with 9 principles covering human rights, labor, and environment. And later, in 2004, also added the 10th principle, anti-corruption. The signatories to Global Compacts, which initially at the time were about 40 who signed that conference, there are 2 organizations from India at that time. They all committed to adhere to these principles and also work for UN Millennium Development Goals, which were there from the year 2000-2015, and take up some projects and activities depending on their priorities as well as their objectives. Since then, Global Compact has expanded. Now, it's the members, over 12,000 members from over 160 countries who joined the UN Global Compact, and it has about 100 networks in different countries, Indian network being one of the top 10 presently. The activities of the global, well, I'll now come to the Indian network, which was launched in the same year, 2000, but then the network was registered as a legal body, as a society in 2003. Following the international practice, we have the business organizations, public and private sector joining, the NGOs, civil society organizations are part of it, and there are also associations and academic institutions who are also members of the Global Compact. In fact, in India, we have almost all the chambers of commerce who have been part of the UN Global Compact from the beginning. The activities which we have been undertaking are basically spreading the awareness to the UN Global Compact principles and also asking our members to show their commitment to the principles as well as what they are going to do about the Millennium Development Goals. From the year 2015 now, we have the Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs. In fact, UN Global Compact was also involved when these goals were being developed. There have been several meetings at that time. And finally, when the SDGs were decided by the UN General Assembly, the UN Global Compact started focusing more on the Sustainable Development Goals and asking all the signatories and the participants in different countries to work towards these goals. Now, the goals could be, they cover almost all aspects of life, really, and depending on again, the priorities in the countries, various organizations have been, and the companies have been focusing on the different areas like health and education and skill development and so on. The UN Global Compact network in India has been focusing on the 10th principle separately, on the anti-corruption principle. And we set up a separate center which is working towards the ethical governance and transparency and other principles, really. About 10 years back, there was a program initiated by the UN Global Compact in 5 countries on anti-corruption studies and research and work under the Siemens Integrity Initiative. Sabina is here, and I remember having met her at that time, and 5 countries participated. India was one of them. We continued that effort, and after the program, which was 4 years, the time was over, we also worked on under the UK Prosperity Fund program, and then again, for the last 3 years or so, again under the Siemens Integrity Initiative. In this center, one of the major areas we have taken up is smart cities, and that's where we are here collaborating in this effort. Apart from that, we have been working under this program on the center on the ethical practices for the, let's say, for the procurement systems by the government, what the companies should be doing for following the ethical practices, how to integrate the principles of anti-corruption in their functioning. So several areas we have been doing. But in the case of smart cities, what we thought was that if these ethical principles are built in right in the beginning, when the governance systems are being developed, rather than talking about corruption later, it's better to inbuild from the beginning. It's like a prevention is better than cure type of thing. So how do we bring in those aspects? We have been doing the research studies and also jointly working with some of the I would say the municipal bodies, starting with the Pune, really. We signed the MOU with them. And then we have offered to work with other cities as well. We feel that this smart city, the project, which is a very ambitious project, a lot of work has been done, but to undertake this, the projects under the Smart Cities program, the organizations which have to be built up, which have to be developed, if from beginning they are able to develop proper systems, the governance systems, the procedures, the practices which have to be followed, it will help quite a lot. So to that extent, we feel that the discussion in this particular conference, this event, and maybe several other events where we have been participating, which will be of great value. And UN Global Compact, both at the country level as well as at the global level, international level, is also committed to the Smart Cities program. So therefore, it really meshes well with the overall objectives and overall initiative which is there. So I must welcome you all on behalf of the UN Global Compact Network, and also compliment the World Bank and all other organizations who are jointly organizing this particular event and focusing on a very important area. And I think the word collaborative is very important, because when you're talking about smart development, smart cities, it has to be a collaborative effort. And let's see what we can discuss and come up with suggestions in this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kohli, and we would look forward to working with you in Global Compact. Now, talking of collaborations, I think one of the key stakeholders in this entire ecosystem are the academic institutions in the country, and everybody knows that IITs, IIMs are some of the top organizations in the country. Even within IITs, we have somebody with us, Professor MP Gupta. I was talking to him yesterday that, in 2003, when I was asked to give training to a batch of IAS officers on e-governance, I purchased his book on e-governance. I read it, and then I was able to talk to the officers more. And I think that was the first gift I gave to all these participants in that conference. Since that time, I think things have changed. E-governance changed to, all governance is e-governance. Then we came to big data, mobile governance, now smart cities. And I make it a point every 6 months, meet him once, even tea, lunch or something. And that half an hour discussion, he would say 1 or 2 things which then tell you what to do in the next 6 months. We're very fortunate that he is among us today, and I would like to request him to share his views with us.
Thank you, Vikas, for such a kind words. I'll share with you a few of my ideas and also some observations. Smart cities that we talk about today is still a new idea. In India, it was 2015, Government of India announced a program of 100 smart cities. And since then, there have been discussions over seminars and also in other formats to understand meaning of this and also understand how we can realize this big dream. I think it will evolve in due course. I would not be sure what will be the format of a smart city in 50 years from now. But prior to 2015, I've been mostly, spending my time into studying e-governance. That was given a new name called Digital India in, again, I think 15 itself, or 14. 14, I think. And Government of India, again, thought about e-governance first time in 2006 in the format of a national plan on e-governance. And prior to that, there have been sporadic experiments by government officers here and there. And it started making news. And most enticing was coming from Andhra Pradesh when then Chief Minister Mr. Naidu kept starting some new experiments around deploying ICT into public systems. So the journey of evolution of e-governance from sporadic experiments to having a countrywide national plan on e-governance in 2006, and in 14 or 15 in the format of a overarching program called Digital India. So almost took 15-20 years to have a countrywide global program. A smart city, how it will evolve in coming 15 to 20 years, I would like to see 50 years from now. So Digital India, a smart city, do we think, are they related somewhere? So there's a digital landscape. I would see probably, just effort of computerization, automation, achieving basic, existence over cyberspace. So it will mirror our existence that we see today into cyberspace, just making, processes more efficient. And what is smart? Probably adding more, high-tech like IoT and sensors, etc., over digital space. So in smart, there are many ways, this can be referred to as an acronym, but I pick up R from smart, and R signifies response time. And mostly we're looking at a smart city where R should be, real-time online system. And 50 years from now, probably I'll visualize a smart city like, and all from infrastructure angle should be, looking like any laptop or mobile phone. And if you go little behind the laptop, we see motherboard, where parts can be all modular. You can replace and upgrade, even probably looking at form factor, make it more compact. So 50 years from now, if a smart city matures, evolved, like a motherboard, so we can plug and play very easily and solve a lot of problems. There will not be a problem like Ojha, where a mosque is attempted to demolished for the want of a temple. We can easily relocate mosque to some other place or negotiate to have both at a distance. You may not have problem like Kaveri River. Somewhere there might be a solution. Just playing plug and play kind of over city infrastructure like we do with motherboard. So this is how I visualize a maturity of this concept probably after 50 years, 100 years from now. Some of the issues that I foresee, they're all probably known also, but few I think not getting highlight. So in 2008, first time IBM probably thought about a smart planet, and then it caught the fancy of everyone, and the worldwide smart city become an agenda. In 2014 itself, ITU revised the term smart city to smart sustainable city. But in India, we announced a smart city program in 15, and we did not renamed it like smart sustainable city. We talked about smart cities. So that means sustainability part could not get real emphasis that we probably talk about here. And there are many good efforts gone into creating this idea by ITU, and experts who are part of ITU. They suggest about adopting an integrated approach, and it tells many things. Okay. But in India, I see the real vision about this entire program needs revisit, because Government of India at a central level talk something, state government probably they talk something else. So we need to have a common statement where every government is part of it. Number two, understanding integration among many programs that Government of India announced recently in 3 to 4 years' time in past. I mentioned about Digital India and a smart city. Do we have any connections among these two programs? I have not seen any document about that that talks about integration. Of course, there will be some integration among them. And few omissions that I foresee in e-government plans, which is now part of Digital India, that relates to having a legal provisions that deals with e-governance subject in particular. A smart city, we talk about a completely wired city. We are all in jail of wires. So what will be the legal issues that would emanate out of a wired, completely wired society? You have to visualize that. There are two parts of it. One, that if there is a violation, there is a conflict, you have to have legal system in place to respond to that. And one, to think about the process itself to achieve a very responsive smart cities. How to achieve that? Now there are many models of that. But among all models, one would be the best model. And what is that? And do we need to persuade people to adopt best model? Can we make some law that all best practices has to be adopted? In US, I'm familiar. They have a dedicated e-government act. It comes out of two congressmen, Gingan Cohen, who were part of then Clinton government, and they studied all IT project best practices across the US government, state government sector. And they listed all chosen best practices which are high performing and can be made standard. And so then President probably asked that these are list of best practices. If you just keep it open to adopt or adopt something else, then there might be some deviation. So make it a law. So e-government act took birth in very early, late 90s itself. Our government thought about Electronic Service Delivery Act some time back. I think previous government thought about it, and it is still not approved by the parliament. Services, just electronic services that we talk about. And we have no mandatory law that binds government to ensure services in electronic format. And if there is any violation, there is a penalty on the government itself. It's a very simple thing. So what would be the facets of legal violations in a smart city scenario? I don't know how can we visualize. Somebody, some group should be working on this. Yeah, about inclusion. Smart cities should be thought in tandem with also taking along satellite towns and also villages as well, small towns and villages as well. Look at Delhi NCR region itself, going to Bhiwadi, going to Ghaziabad, going to Meerut, going to Sonipat. If I am asked to go to Sonipat to share my thoughts, I'll be thinking twice. Here, coming from house caste, going back to house caste to, I'm also heading the department, so I have a lot of roles to play there. So I can spare 2 hours. But going to Sonipat, going to Ghaziabad, going to Bhiwadi or Manesar, probably I'll spare my entire day. A lot of question marks. I have been to Europe frequently in the last 4 or 5 years' time, and I experienced excellent transport system. In 2015, I went to Frankfurt to attend a book fair. I also had a talk on NAME Summit, and so it was a last moment plan, and I could not. Do I have time for this? How much time I have? 5 minutes. I quickly wind up my talk. So, I could not get hotel accommodation in the Frankfurt city. So probably I was guided to book an apartment to a small town, 70 kilometers away from Frankfurt. And I used to take daily a train, and 30 minutes I used to reach Frankfurt and back home. So I don't think there is a need to have a very great technical expert to think about a very simple commonsensical thing to be woven into entire city plan. You look at how we reach to airport if you are taking outer ring road. Just you cross IIT and move towards Munirika and from there is a huge bottleneck, 30 minutes, and sometimes people miss a flight also. Just 10 kilometers behind before airport. If you are coming from Greater Noida and Noida to airport, you have to plan about entire day. So, taking satellite town along with entire game plan, also looking at village living, because we talk about the smart city, it is guided by a trend of urbanization, which is going to be irreversible. 90% of the population live in cities in Australia. 70% of entire Japan is living around Tokyo. So 60%, 50%, 70% will be trained in India also. And we have a huge population. So a small land area, but entire population going to live, going to be part of wealth creating activities, very productive activities. So they need very special infrastructure, which is sustainable, environment friendly. One thing about land acquisition, I think you are familiar. We have a lot of problem on allowing land to be acquired for all kind of developments, etc. State government has some law, central government has some law. This government attempted to reform land law, but somehow things are stuck. And so I think this is also one of the key issues to be brought to a solution. Next is about disaster management. If you're looking at completely wired city, so what is the backup plan of restoring the city to normalcy if something happens? Gurgaon was flooded a few years back. Dadri was having a blackout, and it was affecting entire NCR region, North India region. And every season of rains, we come across such news quite often. When entire city is completely wired, something happens, so it will be just put entire life haywire. Have you thought about the backup plan of managing city from disaster angle? I doubt probably there is a comprehensive plan that exists today. Probably I gave a thought. Disaster has been happening perennially across the globe. There have been agencies working on this. Response system is also established more or less. It requires some unification among those efforts via a portal, maybe UN-led, maybe some other agency-led, where all resources are known there. They have coordination among them. Background, there is some agency working around that. Scientific community, research community, social NGOs are all part of it. And so world over, anything happens, there is a single number, single response system, and everything is available to respond to that. Next is research. I think we need to invest a lot of money on R&D. And there are many facets of research, IT and non-IT both. But probably I'll quickly make you understand the kind of research where you visualize some rare events. And what is the chance of that happening from disaster angle? So what is the chance of Howrah Bridge falling into Ganges or क्या कहते हैं उसको? Hooghly River? No. So what is the chance of Qutub Minar falling down in a second from now? Uttarakhand, we saw a flood, which is something very rare, and happened few years back, and there was no preparedness to respond to that. So rare event studies need to be actually done vigorously, because in a wired city scenario, this has to be actually thought about, and thought about risk and hazard assessment, etc. need to be worked on. And also we need to know great specialists on all subject matter. Yeah, I think I should stop here. Thank you so much for patience.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we have already heard some of the supply side facilitators, academy, and I think now comes the most important part, the demand side. So irrespective of what kind of solutions, what kind of strategies, what kind of policies we might advocate, they have to be implemented by the smart city CEOs. And I think even though in this session we have Mr. P.V. Jaganmohan, who's the Divisional Commissioner in Bareilly. Bareilly, as you know, is a city which was selected in the 4th round. So I think they're the ones who've just got selected and would be able to tell them, what are the issues they want to get resolved, so that this entire discussion does not remain the supply side oriented. And in the coming sessions, you'll see each session is heavily dominated by the demand side, and there's only 1 or 2 people from the supply side. So that is how we want to keep it. So can I invite Mr. P.V. Jaganmohan, who's a Divisional Commissioner with Bareilly, to share his thoughts with us.
My learned panelist here, and my administrator friends, implementing agencies, and very well-known people who are involved in smart city implementation. Dear friends, the concept of smart city for India, although we forgot in the meantime, it came up way back 2000 odd years. When we talk about Indus Valley civilization, I can bet on it that our cities like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Lothal, they were nothing smaller than smart cities. They were excellent smart cities of their own, exporting all spices and rice, clothes, and so many things to the entire world. Gulf countries here, China there, all over the world known the then time. Smart city concept of North India, again, if not 2000 years old, 1000 years back in the name of Vaishali city agglomeration, and Chola Empire, again 1000 years old, had established very well-planned smart cities across the Coromandel shore. The Chola administration, the great Chola emperors, were known for their smart city administration. India has got an unfortunate history of forgetting its own glorious past. So much forgetfulness, so much lethargy, and so much laziness. We have to be told by somebody else that, look, we have to catch up with the rest of the world. Truly so, in the present context, we have to catch up because our fellow friends, rest of the world, they have grown up, developed, and has got a chain of smart cities in their countries. My dear friends, smart city concept, probably having smart Prime Minister and having smart Chief Minister in Uttar Pradesh, I can say we are not lagging behind. In Uttar Pradesh, we are happy to join the race, healthy competition of making more and more smart cities. I am coming from a city called Bareilly, one of the world beauty pageant winner has come from Bareilly. So that time itself, Bareilly has emerged a twinkle of smartness and beauty in it. Now, having joined at the last race of smart city competition, we are happy to have a smart mayor also, and smart commissioner also, and of course smart divisional commissioner also. My dear friends, the day has come, whether wife is there or not, but Wi-Fi should be there. We may leave wife alone, but Wi-Fi cannot be spared. Wherever we go, Wi-Fi should be there. Even if it is the smallest gap of 5-10 minutes, we search for Wi-Fi. And wife is crying that you are not looking at me. This is the way the smart world is moving ahead. I am sure with the other smart colleagues, smart city colleagues of our country, we all thrive together, work hard, work smart. As a result, we end up, I am sure, positively, and I am a positive thinker. Every smart city should have smart kids, smart primary education, smart medium and higher education, smart technical management medical education, smart families, smart income earning members, smart labor force, smart infrastructure, smart senior citizens, and smart pets. Even every smart city should have a regulation for pets management. That is the end of the smart city definition, which I am thinking. Dear panelists, I assure you that I as a representative of Bareilly and Uttar Pradesh, we will strive, we will work smart and hard, and we will get back to our oldest glory of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Lothal, Vaishali, and Chola Empire. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaganmohan. So, as we can see, we don't only have cities aspiring to be smart, but also very confident and knowing fully well that we did it 1,000 years ago, so doing it again may not be a big challenge, provided we work together. So, we know why we could be ruled by others, again because we started working in silos, starting competing with each other, started showing each other down. So I think if we have to reach there again, the key word is collaboration. Before I finally ask you to take a break, I would like to request Jane to give mementos to our panelists as a mark of our respect. So, maybe to Dr. Uddesh Kohli. To Dr. Shashank Ojha. Professor M.P. Gupta and Mr. Jaganmohan. Can I request Lakshmi to give a memento to Jane, please? Thank you so much. With that, I think as Mr. Jaganmohan rightly said, we had a very rich heritage. And as a part of our heritage, to start anything which is knowledge-oriented, we normally started with lighting of the lamp. So can I request all of you to light the lamp? And would also like to request Mr. V.K. Sharma, who is from Indian Institute of Public Administration, who had been one of our partners, to please join the panel for lighting the lamp. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as you can see, we could start on time. Everybody spoke very crisp and very clear messages. And as a result, we've been able to conclude this session